That's a cool picture of Jesus, right? Thumbs up. Who can tell me what that says at the top in the left corner? It says, what? Follow. Say it. Say it all together. 1, 2, 3. Say it again. 1, 2, 3. All right. Okay. We're going to be talking about that today. But before we get into it, I want to welcome any visitors. And I hope that you feel welcomed. And I don't know about you, but I felt the love today. Did y'all feel the love today? There was a lot of love, a lot of smiles, and it was really, really cool. But here at the Homestead Church of Christ, we are a family. And we love each other. And we hope that you, if you're a guest here, that you decide to make this your home and that you can join us and just meet with us every Sunday. And in a family, like you have kids, right? Right? All right, and sometimes kids have different things, activities and stuff they have to do at school. And one of them being is bring your kid to work day. And I have a little video I want to show y'all. But before we watch that video, I want to pray. Let's go ahead and talk to God. Father God, I want to thank you so much for you sending Jesus so that we can follow his example. So that way we can model the way that he lives and try to imitate him. Because so many times, God, we try to compare ourselves to other people when those other people are flawed just like us. I want to pray that you just help us to look to Jesus and to follow Jesus and try to imitate his every step. And all this I pray in your son's name. Amen. All right, watch this cool video.
Part of what makes All-Star Weekend so special for fans and the players alike is quality time spent with the family.
What does being a father mean to you?
Oh, this is the best thing in the world. Nobody can take that away from you. Something that you cherish. He's shy right now, but he will talk about it later on. Who was that? Dwight Howard. And what number Dwight Howard wear? 12. Try to enjoy it as much as possible. Bring my kids down, let them kind of check it out. It was the first time actually hanging with Daddy all day. You want to play basketball when you grow up? You do? Oh, there you go. It's good fun. What? Yeah, right. Who's your favorite player?
Except that.
Huh?
Tyson.
Those NBA players, they were bringing their kid to work. And like while you're bringing your kid to work, what your kid does is they get to watch and see what you do at your job. And I thought it was really, really cool because, like, even in a family, like you have your parents that you follow. Maybe it's for some younger people, it's your grandparents, and maybe it's an older brother or an older sister or a cousin. But we all follow people. We all follow people. And a lot of times in our Christian walk, we say, "Oh, I follow Jesus. Oh, I'm a Christian." But we're going to look at what that really means because sometimes we forget what that means to follow Jesus. I have this funny little thing up here that says, "Follow me. Don't just like the Facebook page." How many of y'all got Facebook? Raise your hand if you got Facebook. Okay? Raise your hand if you had Twitter. Only a few people. Okay, but what Facebook and what Twitter does is it allows you to be able to keep up with everybody. And sometimes you might get a friend request from somebody you don't know, but what you can do is you can allow them to be a friend. You add them as a friend. You don't even have to know the person. But as long as Facebook says that you're friends, you're friends. And it's kind of funny. And on Twitter, it's really cool because you get to follow like different people and get to follow their posts and you get to see what they're doing in their life, but you really don't have to get involved in their life. You really don't have to know their struggles. You really don't have to know what they're going through on a day-to-day basis. But you can follow them. And that's not how it is with Jesus. When we're trying to imitate Jesus, when we're in a relationship with God, it requires us to get to know who Jesus is. It requires us to walk as he walked. And what we're going to do this morning, we're going through a series. We're going through the Bible in chronological order. And where we're at right now, we're in the Gospels. And Mike just got finished wrapping up the Sermon on the Mount. And what I'm going to do is I want to take you guys on a journey we're going to follow Jesus and we're going to follow his disciples. And we're going to see what his disciples and some of his followers went through while they were with Jesus. I want y'all to open up your Bibles. Go ahead and go to Matthew chapter 8. We're going to look at verses 18 through 22. 18 through 22. So Matthew chapter 8. Looking at verses 18 through 22. Starting in chapter 8 down in verse 18. It says, when Jesus saw the crowd around him, he gave orders to cross the side of the lake. So what we have so far is Jesus, he's been with people. He's been healing people. He's been feeding people. He just got finished doing a lot of different things, a lot of different miracles to help people out. So he has this huge crowd around him. So he tells the disciples, hey, disciples, we're going to cross to the other side of that lake, okay? Now in verse 19. Then a teacher of the law came to him and said, teacher, I will follow you wherever you go. Jesus, if you go into a hole, guess what, Jesus? I'm going to go there. I'm talking about Jesus. If you get on a spaceship and go to outer space, I'm going to go there. This guy is saying, I'm going to follow you, Jesus, wherever you go. I'm going to be with you, Jesus. You're so cool. I saw all the miracles you were doing, and you're an awesome guy, and I want to follow you. And sometimes we get excited about what we see, and we really don't understand what we're getting ourselves into. And this guy was like, I'm going to follow you wherever you go, Jesus. But it was really cool because this guy here, it says that he was a teacher of the law. Teachers of the law, they were really respected. I'm sure they had some wealth, they had money. They weren't unwealthy people. They were really respected. And so what this meant for this guy is he would have to give up everything to follow Jesus. So this is what Jesus says to him. Look at verse 20. He says, Jesus replied, foxes have dens and birds have nests, but the Son of Man has no place to rest his head. So maybe I'm thinking this guy's second guessing himself. He's like, do I really want to follow Jesus? This is some serious stuff I'm getting into. Look at verse 21. Another disciple said to him, Lord, first let me go and bury my father. So he said, there's first some things I got to take care of. That's important. He's saying, first let me go and do this, Jesus. Let me go do this, and then I'm going to follow you wherever you go. This is what Jesus says. But Jesus told him, in verse 22, follow me and let the dead bury their own dead. That right there, it seemed kind of harsh. But these people didn't really understand what it meant to follow Jesus. I think they got really excited about all the miracles that they saw him doing, and they were like, I'm going to follow you wherever you go. But he wanted to show them, he wanted to put it in their head what Jesus goes through. Because Jesus, he didn't have a home. That's why I have that picture there. Jesus was homeless by choice. Jesus didn't have a place to lay his head. And these guys were going to have to give up everything. They were going to have to leave their family. And Jesus was saying, do you really want to do it? And right after, while you're with Jesus, while you're following Jesus, there's going to be some things that we have to give up. We're going to have to get out of our comfort zone sometimes. Sometimes we're going to have to go into different things and step out of what we might think is comfortable to follow Jesus. And as Jesus was with his disciples, the very next thing that happens is Jesus told them to go to the other side of the lake, right? Amen? He said, go to the other side of the lake. So his disciples are getting on the boat, and they get on the boat, and as they're going to the other side of the lake, while they're on this boat, a storm happens. In the book of Mark, it talks about how it was a squall. It was a really fierce storm. This storm was really bad. And it was so bad that it had fishermen freaking out. How many of y'all seen A Perfect Storm? Seen that movie, The Perfect Storm? And then that's a scary scene. This huge wave comes up, and these fishermen are freaking out. And I picture that scene right here. It's a fierce storm, and these fishermen are freaking out, and what they're doing is they're bailing water out of the boat, and I'm sure they're tired, and they're trying to get the water out of the boat, and they're freaking out and running around. Oh, we're going to die, we're going to die. They're freaking out. And so what one of the disciples do is he goes down to Jesus. Jesus is in the stern. That's at the bottom of the boat. I'm sure there's water at the bottom because it said that the boat was swamped. But Jesus was asleep. It says that he was in there sleeping. And disciples woke him up and they said, Jesus, don't you care that we're perishing? I'm sure Jesus was like, man, why are y'all waking me from my nap? I was just having a good dream about chilling with the Father. Why you wake me? Didn't I tell you we're going to the other side? Didn't I tell you we're going to cross that lake? And so he gets up and he says, you have little faith. And he walks out. And he says to that storm, he says, peace, be still. And that storm was calmed. And his disciples got to see who was in control. They got to remember who they were following. They were following the Son of God. And sometimes in our lives, we're going to go through storms. We're going to go through things that we think that we're not going to make it out of. We're going to go through really hard times. Maybe we lost somebody. Maybe we're going through a bad state in our finances. But as long as we got Jesus, he says that we're going to make it to that other side. And he said, peace, be still. And when we're going with Jesus, when we're following Jesus, we got to remember that he's the Son of God, that he's our leader, he's our master, and he is going to lead us. We have to trust him. We're going to go through storms. That's a given. Life is rough sometimes. But if you're following Jesus, it's going to be all right. Say it's going to be all right. I like that, Savannah. Go on, girl. And then picture this. So the disciples just got out of a what? A storm, right? So they got out of a storm. They're on a boat. You think they're tired? I think that they're tired. They were bailing water all night long, freaking out. Blood pressure is probably up, sky high. Okay, but they get to the other side, like Jesus said, because Jesus said we're going to the other side, and they got to the other side, just like he said. And so when they get to the other side, they see that it's a graveyard. They notice it's a graveyard, and I'm sure they're like, man, why am I following this guy? This guy is crazy. He's put us through a storm. Now we're in the graveyard. It's going to be ghosts walking around. And these guys are probably freaking out. And what comes out of this graveyard is a man running up to Jesus, saying, what do you want with me, Son of God? Because he's demon-possessed. And in this particular chapter, it says that it was two men. But in the book of Mark, it talks about it being one man. So I'm picturing this guy was pretty bad. He was pretty crazy, and it's probably pretty scary. And it says also in the book of Mark how this guy, he was probably really, really strong, because it said that he would get bound by chains, but he would break the chains. And it says that he looked really rough. And so I imagine the disciples, as this guy is running up to Jesus, that they're freaking out. And I'm sure Jesus is like really calm and really collective, and his disciples are freaking out. And so what Jesus ended up doing is he helps this guy. This guy has a lot of demons that he's battling. And these demons say, have you come to destroy us before the appointed time? He says, please send us into those pigs. And so Jesus says to them, go. And they go into the pigs and they jump into the lake. But see, while we're with Jesus, sometimes there are going to be people that are battling things. They're battling their demons. They're battling their struggles, battling their temptations, going through hard times. They're battling things. And if we're following Jesus, we're going to have to be there for those people. We're going to have to help them to overcome those struggles, to overcome those things that they're battling while we're with Jesus. Then right after that, this whole chapter, Jesus isn't getting a break. I mean, it's back to back, Jesus doing all these different things. And he's going into another side of the lake, and he gets to the region where he's from. And as Jesus is going into his region, he runs across a paralytic. This guy is paralyzed. And his friends bring him to Jesus. And what Jesus does, he heals this guy. He heals this guy. He was unable to move, but Jesus heals him. And see, sometimes when we're with Jesus, when we're following Jesus, there's going to be people that are paralyzed because of different situations that might be going on in their lives. I mean, they feel like they can't move on, that they're stuck. And sometimes they don't want to move on because they're too afraid of what's on the other side. But just like Jesus, just like his disciples, we have to follow Jesus, and we have to help those people out. We have to help them to see that with Jesus we can do anything. That there's nothing that can hinder us from doing what we want as long as we're doing it for God. And Jesus showed his disciples that. I want y'all to go with me to Matthew chapter 9, just the next page over. We're going to look at verses 9 through 12. Matthew chapter 9, verses 9 through 12. Okay, in verse 9 it says, as Jesus went on from there, he saw a man named Matthew sitting at a tax collector's booth. Follow me, he told him. And Matthew got up and followed him. Again, that's crazy right there. Because these tax collectors, they were wealthy people too. Sometimes these guys, I don't know if all of them did, and I'm sure the majority of them did, but they would take more than what they were supposed to. And they would put it in their pocket. And sometimes a lot of people didn't respect them. They were traitors. A lot of people didn't like them. But Jesus comes up to this tax collector, Matthew, and he says, hey, you, follow me. And he leaves everything. He leaves all of his money. He leaves everything, and he follows Jesus. And then watch what happens in the next verse. In verse 10, it says, while Jesus was having dinner at Matthew's house, many tax collectors and sinners came and ate with him and his disciples. When the Pharisees saw this, they asked his disciples, why does your teacher eat with tax collectors and sinners? I think these guys were forgetting that they were sinners too, like they were all sinners. It says in Romans 3:23 that for all have sinned and fall short of the glory of God. Maybe they're forgetting that. And so, on hearing this, Jesus said, is it not the healthy who need a doctor? Is it the healthy that need the doctor? Is it the healthy that need the doctor? Okay, Jesus says that it's the sick. Do y'all agree with that? Okay, and then he says, in the next part, he says, but go and learn what this means. I desire mercy, not sacrifice, for I have not come to call the righteous, but sinners. He said, I didn't come to call the righteous. Y'all are good. You guys know who I am. I came for those that don't know who I am. And sometimes when we're following Jesus, he tells us to get out of our comfort zones. He tells us sometimes we got to leave this church building and we got to go and hit the streets. We have to go and minister to kids that might act up because they don't know any better. He tells us to go out there and go feed the homeless. Go be with them. Go see where they live. Go see what they go through. Sometimes Jesus tells us to go into a school and tell people and talk to kids and try to invite them to church, even though they might reject you. And Jesus tells us that while following him, it's important that we're trying to encourage people, because those are the people that need Jesus. Sometimes it requires us getting out of our comfort zone. And sometimes we're going to have people that look at us weird because of that. Like, why are you with those people? They're drinking, they're drunk. Those people are smoking marijuana. That guy's homeless. Why are you with them? But that's exactly what Jesus was doing. Jesus was with those people. And when we're following Jesus, sometimes we got to get down and dirty. And then you have people, the Pharisees, and the law keepers, they were always out to get Jesus. They didn't really like this guy. And sometimes while we're following Jesus, there are going to be a lot of people that don't really like what we're doing. They're going to question everything that you're doing. I know Mike gets it a lot. But there's going to be a lot of people that do that. But we got to hold on. And we got to keep living like Jesus. And as Jesus was walking with his disciples, he ran a man came to him. He was a ruler, a wealthy ruler. And this ruler said to Jesus, he said, hey, Jesus, my daughter is dead. And so Jesus was walking to his house to check it out, and on his way to his house, there was a woman that was sick. She was sick. And she reached out to Jesus and tried to touch his garment. She had hope that if she can just touch it, that she would be healed. And Jesus turns to her and says, your faith has healed you. And Jesus ends up getting to the ruler's house, and he sees that he goes up to the house and he sees that people are mourning and people are crying and they're playing flutes. And Jesus says, hey, this girl isn't dead, she's just asleep. And they start laughing at him. And so Jesus goes over to the bed and he grabs the girl by her hand and he picks her up. She's alive. And while we're following Jesus, there's going to be people that we need to give hope to. Some people that are hopeless. Some people that are down on their luck and they're out of hope and they don't know what else to do, and the answer is Jesus. And we have that answer. And sometimes it's going to take us sometimes to go and visit people that might have lost a loved one. Even though it seems like a sad place, that's going to be the place that we need to be if we're being like Jesus, to comfort those people. And as Jesus was doing that, like it's so much that Jesus was doing, this is just, it doesn't stop. Like nonstop. If you read it, it says then after that, and then after that. And then when he was finished with this, Jesus does this. He goes and he heals the blind and the mute. And these are people that can't see and people that can't hear. And that's what we're required to do as we're following Jesus. There's a lot of people that can't see. They can't see God. They can't see and they don't know that God is evident in their life. And they can't see it. And some people that can't hear. I like what Paul says. He says, how are they supposed to hear if nobody goes? And it's up to us. We have that message that the world is looking for. And the only way for them to hear is if we speak about it. If we're not speaking about it, can they hear? We're going to end with this passage. Go to verse 35. Matthew chapter 9. We're going to look at 35 through 38. Starting in verse 35. Okay. Jesus went through all the towns and villages, teaching in their synagogues, preaching the good news of the kingdom, and healing every disease and sickness. So I picture Jesus has been doing this for a long while. I picture huge crowds of people following him because they're looking for hope. They're looking for something, and the law keepers, they weren't able to do what Jesus was doing. There was something different about Jesus. And so these people were curious to what this man was about, curious to who he was. And so I picture a lot of people following Jesus. And there's a huge crowd around Jesus. And this is what Jesus does. When he saw the crowds, he had compassion on them because they were harassed and helpless like sheep without a shepherd. And there's so many lost people. And Jesus saw that. And we need to see it just like Jesus. In verse 37 it says, then he said to his disciples, the harvest is plentiful, but the workers are few. I'm going to read that again. It says, he said the harvest is plentiful, but the workers are few. He says, ask the Lord of the harvest, therefore, to send workers out into the harvest field. And when we're following Jesus, we're required to do what he does. We're required to get out of our comfort zone, get out of this church building, go and hit the streets, go into our jobs, telling people about what Jesus has done for us in our lives. Not just hearing a sermon on Sunday and saying, oh, I feel good. But actually putting it and applying it to our lives and really trying to follow Jesus. Because what does it mean to follow Jesus? When Jesus was telling those guys at the beginning, he says, foxes have holes and I, the Son of Man, don't have a place to lay my head. We got to get out of our comfort zone. There's going to be some things in our lives that we're going to have to give up. We're going to have to really put our trust in God. And sometimes when we're putting our trust in God, it requires us to step out on faith, not knowing what's going to happen. Because Jesus is always going to provide, and Jesus is always going to be there. And he says that we're going to make it to the other side. But we have to follow him. And there's going to be some people we encounter that have struggles. There's going to be some people we encounter that are going through a lot of different things, and we have that hope that they need. But what does it mean to follow Jesus? Does it mean to just read his word and then leave it on the table? Or does it mean to read his word, take what he was saying, and live it out in my life and really, really follow him? Walk step by step to imitate him. That was Jesus' life. And if we say we're Christians, what Christian means is Christ-like. And that means we imitate Christ. And so if our life isn't looking like Jesus, then we need to change something. Because that's what Jesus did. And that's what he meant when we made the decision as Christians to follow Jesus. We said, Jesus, I want to give my life to you. I want to follow you. That's what that meant. In Luke 9:23, he says, if you want to follow me, you got to deny yourself, take up your cross daily on a day-to-day basis, and then follow me. We got to lose our lives. And then if we lose our lives, we lose ourselves, then we're going to gain something. Because we can gain a whole entire world. Well, what's the price of it if we're going to forfeit our soul? What it means to follow Jesus is to walk in his steps. And maybe you're struggling with that. Maybe you're struggling with doing what Jesus is doing. Maybe you're saying, I don't have time, Jesus. Maybe you have different things that you're struggling with. Maybe it's somebody at your job that God is tugging on you. The Holy Spirit is saying, tell them about me. Tell them about me. They need to hear. And you just can't do it. You're afraid to step out on faith because of what they might think. We can pray for you. Maybe you're struggling with trust in Jesus and letting him lead you as you follow. Now is your time to come up. We have a song of invitation. And as everybody's standing, I want you to come up. Because God is tugging on your heart. Stand as we sing the song of invitation.